Chloe, the girl I had been quietly in love with for the entirety of my 3 years in high school, told me she had feelings for me. I felt a dizzying rush, a sense of disbelief that this perfect, shining person could see me, and I was just about to stammer out a yes when my brother Mark scoffed from nearby. "You're not actually falling for that, are you?" he sneered, his voice dripping with the casual cruelty he reserved just for me. "At almost 200 pounds, don't you have any self-awareness?" The words were like a physical blow, and the humiliation burned hot in my cheeks. I instinctively started to turn away, to retreat into the shadows where I felt I belonged. But Chloe's voice stopped me. "I like you," she said, her gaze firm. "It has nothing to do with your appearance." In that moment, I chose to believe her. I clung to her words like a lifeline. But that belief was shattered not long after, when I came home early one afternoon and saw them through the living room window. She and my brother were locked in a passionate kiss under the old oak tree in our front yard. I didn't say a word. I didn't confront them. I just went inside, packed a bag, and a week later I followed my dad when he moved up north. 8 years passed. We saw each other again at our high school class reunion. Time had been kind to me. The weight was long gone, replaced by lean muscle from years of disciplined work. I was taller, fitter, a completely different person from the boy she'd known. Chloe made her way through the crowded room, her eyes fixed on me. "Can we talk?" she asked. I glanced past her shoulder at the calm, composed woman standing near the entrance, my wife, and I shook my head. "No thanks," I said, my voice even. "My wife would get jealous." My hand froze on the handle of the private room's door as I overheard snippets of conversation from inside. "I hear Alex Miller is coming to the reunion tonight. Doesn't he always skip these things?" Probably saw that Chloe and his brother got engaged and is filled with regret. What's there to regret? Everyone knew Chloe only confessed to him back then to spite his brother. Besides, he was as big as a house. There's no way Chloe would have actually been into him. For 8 long years, Chloe's confession had been a source of private shame, a running joke I thought only I was privy to. But they all knew. Even my own mother had used it to humiliate me time and again. "Have you looked in a mirror?" she'd once spat at me. "Chloe is pretty, a great student, and comes from a good family. Why would she ever be interested in you? She said she liked you and you just believed it." Seeing my wounded silence, she had added a final, crushing blow. "I'm warning you, get those ideas out of your head. She and your brother are a match made in heaven. They'll get married sooner or later, so just give it up." That was how I discovered my brother Mark and Chloe were officially dating. Everyone in our small world knew, everyone except for me. But Mark was arrogant, and Chloe was just as proud. Their relationship was a constant battlefield. They fought every other day, with neither willing to be the first to back down. The day Chloe confessed her feelings to me, they had just endured their worst fight yet. Chloe had sworn she would rather date a pig than get back together with Mark. In his typical fashion, Mark sneered back, "Then go date Alex." What he never expected was that Chloe would actually do it. What he expected even less was that I would actually believe her. For the month we were supposedly together, Chloe was incredibly attentive. She brought me breakfast every morning, remembered my favorite sports drinks after gym class, and patiently helped me with homework assignments that I struggled with. I was completely and utterly convinced that her feelings were genuine. The day I discovered the truth was a bright, sunny Sunday. I had just finished my homework and was gazing out my bedroom window, feeling a rare sense of peace. That's when I saw them, standing under the big oak tree in our yard. Chloe and Mark were wrapped up in a fiery, desperate kiss that left no room for interpretation. I watched them quietly for a long moment, my heart turning to ice. Then, I picked up my phone and called Chloe. Under the tree, I saw her frantically push Mark away. She answered the phone, Her voice strained as she tried to sound calm. "What's up?" she asked. "Chloe," I said, my own voice flat and empty. "We're breaking up." When my mom found out I was planning to move north with my dad, I was in the middle of packing. She stormed into my room and, in a fit of rage, threw my neatly packed luggage all over the floor. She screamed at me like a madwoman, her face contorted with fury, calling me an ungrateful brat. "I raised you all this time and you're just going to leave? Why didn't you go with him when we got divorced?" Mark, ever the opportunist, chimed in to fan the flames. "Mom, I told you, he's always had his own agenda." My mom cut him off before he could finish. "What kind of agenda could he possibly have? Does he think he can have the good life he has now by following that loser of a father?" When my parents divorced years earlier, my mother had insisted on keeping both of us children, but it quickly became clear she only had eyes for Mark. The best food always went to him first. The cool, limited edition sneakers were his to pick from. Only at mealtimes, after they had both eaten their fill, would she push the leftovers in front of me, insisting I finish everything so nothing would go to waste. Over time, I grew fatter and fatter, and she, in turn, grew more and more disgusted with me. "How can two kids from the same parents look so different?" she would often say, loud enough for me to hear. "I never should have had you. You're just an embarrassment." My mom had always favored Mark. He was handsome, received good grades without trying, and most importantly, he was a smooth talker who knew exactly what to say to charm her. I was just a quiet, boring bookworm, and because I was overweight, no one at school ever wanted to be my friend. Chloe was the first classmate who ever approached me on her own initiative. For a brief, hopeful period, I thought she might be my salvation. But in the end, she left me waiting in a downpour. She had asked me to meet her on the athletic field after school. I waited for hours, long after the evening study hall had begun, but she never showed up. When I finally gave up and walked home, soaked and dejected, I found out that Mark had sprained his ankle. It was Chloe who had brought him home. When I walked into the living room, she was carefully applying medicine to his swollen ankle. She was so focused on him, so gentle, that she didn't even notice me approach. Mark, however, saw me and immediately put on an innocent, wounded act. "Chloe just felt sorry for me because I got hurt," he said, his voice soft. "You don't mind, do you, Alex?" I didn't say anything. His eyes welled up with practiced tears. "I'm sorry. Next time I get hurt, I won't bother Chloe." Just then, my mom came out of her room and saw Mark's teary-eyed performance. Without asking a single question, she dragged me into my room and let loose a torrent of abuse. "If you weren't clinging to Chloe all day, your brother wouldn't have fallen on his way home alone. Look closely at Chloe. She only has eyes for your brother. Did you really think she liked you? She was just messing with you. From now on, you are not to see Chloe anymore. Do you hear me?" I stared at her, stunned into silence. But Chloe was the one who confessed to me, I managed to whisper. "They're a young couple having a fight. You actually believed that?" She looked me up and down with pure disgust. "Look at you, then look at your brother. Even a blind person wouldn't choose you." I don't remember how I got out of that room. I only remembered that as soon as I stepped out into the hallway, I saw my dad standing there, out of breath from rushing over. In that instant, tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. When my dad figured out what had happened, his face turned livid with rage and he started yelling. Ignoring my mom's furious protests, he took my arm and walked me out of that house without a second glance. We were gone for 8 years. A while ago, they called to say that Chloe and Mark were getting married. It was Mark who made the call. "Alex, you and Dad should come back for my wedding. It wouldn't be complete without you." I was silent for a long time before I finally said, "Okay. Are you here for the class reunion too? Why aren't you going in?" A voice beside me pulled me from my thoughts. I nodded to the man I vaguely recognized. He pushed the door open and started walking in, saying over his shoulder, "I don't recognize you. What's your name?" "Alex Miller," I said. "Alex Miller? What?" He stopped abruptly and spun around in shock, his eyes wide. "You're saying you're Alex Miller?" His voice was so loud that everyone in the private room turned to look. Some faces showed stunned disbelief. Some were merely confused. Others were just curious. Under their collective gaze, I casually greeted everyone. Finally, someone reacted, eagerly pulling me over to a seat. "Alex, it's me, Leo, your old desk mate. Do you remember?" After I nodded, he looked me over, marveling. "How did you get so handsome? Look at that face. He looks like a celebrity. And that body? You could be a model. You have to share your workout secrets." Before he could finish, another guy cut him off. "Leo, are you stupid? He didn't look like this before. He obviously had some high-tech help. Alex, don't tell me you got plastic surgery. It must have cost a fortune to look like that, right?" I replied with a faint smile. "Thank you for the compliment." He frowned. "When did I compliment you?" "You said I was handsome, and you said I was rich." The room fell silent again. After a brief, awkward pause, another guy tried to ease the tension, but just as he started to speak, the door to the room was pushed open. Chloe and Mark walked in, one after the other. After 8 years, Chloe had shed her youthful awkwardness and now appeared poised and beautiful. Mark was as flamboyant as ever, immediately mingling with the crowd. Suddenly, someone brought me up. "Hey, Mark, your little brother is here today." Mark didn't register it at first. "Which little brother?" "Alex." It dawned on him. He glanced around the room dismissively. "He said he might come, but I figured he wouldn't show." "He's here," the classmate said, pointing directly at me. "That's him." At his words, both Mark and Chloe looked over at the same time. The lighting in the room was too dim for me to see their expressions clearly, but I saw them both freeze in place. 1 second, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. A full 30 seconds passed before Mark finally reacted, quickly getting up and walking over to me. "Alex?" I gave a soft, Mark smiled, but his voice was dripping with passive aggression. "I was wondering why you wouldn't come back all these years. Turns out you were hiding away getting work done. But I have to say, now you look more like my brother." Someone nearby snickered. "I bet he used your face as the template." Even when I was overweight, I had a slight resemblance to Mark. Now that I was slim, the likeness was undeniably stronger. After that comment, everyone was looking at me in a peculiar, speculative way. Leo suddenly piped up, his voice indignant. "Are you all blind? Alex is obviously way more handsome. You know, jealousy is not a good look on anyone." Mark flushed with anger. "What's that supposed to mean? Why would I be jealous of him?" "Because he's better looking than you now that he's fit." "You—" Mark seemed to think of something and quickly composed himself. "I haven't chosen a best man yet. Alex, why don't you do it?" "Sorry," I said regretfully. "I'm married." Mark frowned. "How come I never heard you got married?" "We just got our license today. Haven't had a chance to announce it yet." Leo's eyes lit up. "For real? How come your wife didn't come tonight?" Just as I was about to speak, the same guy who had been mocking me chimed in again. "He says that and you just believe him? He's gone through all that surgery, what's not to understand?" Someone asked. "Understand what?" "He knows Chloe is in love with Mark, so he got plastic surgery to look just like him. Isn't it obvious he's trying to win her back?" I gave him a long, hard look. "I really am married. The marriage certificate is in my bag." "See? Look at that! He even got a fake certificate made. Could his intentions be any clearer?" Everyone had a different expression on their face. I didn't feel the need to prove myself. I stood up and headed for the restroom. You guys carry on. Excuse me for a moment. After freshening up in the restroom, I noticed an unread message on my phone. Honey, I'm here. Where are you? A smile touched my lips. On my way. Leaving the restroom, I passed a small lounge area. The door was ajar. I glanced inside instinctively and saw Mark, his eyes red, clutching the corner of Chloe's shirt. I forbid you to go after Alex. Chloe's face was grim. Can you stop being ridiculous? Then promise me you won't see Alex alone. I just came out for some air. Mark's voice choked with emotion. Alex leaves and you follow him right out. If I hadn't come after you, would you two be rekindling things right now? Chloe looked exhausted. I told you there's nothing between us. Why don't you believe me? Mark's voice cracked. You were watching him the entire time. When you heard he was married, you nearly crushed your glass. Chloe, you're obviously not over him. It's been 8 years and you never stopped trying to find him. Don't you dare say you don't have him in your heart. Enough, Chloe cut him off coldly. If you want to make a scene for everyone to see, then by all means, keep going. I didn't stay to hear the rest. Back in the private room, I scanned the crowd, but didn't see the familiar figure I was looking for. Leo pulled me down to sit. Alex, do you know who just showed up? Who? Sophie Chen. I froze for a second, then heard him continue dreamily. I can't believe she came today. To see that goddess-level face again in my lifetime, I can die happy now. His dramatic expression made me laugh. It's not that serious. It is. If you don't believe me, you'll see for yourself in a bit. Just as he was speaking, the door was pushed open. Chloe walked in, but Mark was nowhere in sight. Then another tall, graceful figure entered. It was Sophie. Our eyes met across the room. I stood up and started walking toward her, but Chloe blocked my path. Alex, we need to talk. As she spoke, I instinctively looked at Sophie. Leaning against the doorframe, she gave me a playful wink. After 5 years together, I knew her too well. Whenever she found something amusing, she'd give me a look just like that. Seeing I hadn't moved, she quickly typed on her phone. A moment later, I got a message from her. Talk to her. I reluctantly asked Chloe, what do you want to talk about? Let's go outside. Sophie's new message arrived. Go with her. I pretended not to see it, put my phone away, and said to Chloe, no thanks. My wife would get jealous. Don't be fooled by how magnanimous Sophie sounded. She's the type to settle scores later. The last time I listened to her and had one drink with her best friend, the result was that later that night she held me close and kissed me in every single corner of our apartment. The memory still makes my heart tremble. Just as I was about to walk toward Sophie, my wrist was suddenly grabbed. A strong force pulled me out of the room and into the stairwell. I winced in pain and shook off the hand. Chloe, are you insane? Sorry, I just wanted to talk to you alone. Her mouth said sorry, but I didn't feel an ounce of apology in her grip. There's nothing for us to talk about, I said, my tone sharp. Chloe's lips thinned. I wanted to ask how you've been all these years. I've been great. All these years I've been asking people to find you, but no one could get in touch. Where did you go? I fell silent. When I left back then, I deleted Chloe's contact information, but I kept everyone else's. Yet I never received a single call or message from anyone, not even an email. Alex, back then, I was being sincere. Alex? Leo peeked his head through the stairwell door, grinning. We're heading to the next spot. You coming? I immediately turned. Let's go. Once we were a little farther away, Leo lowered his voice. What did Chloe want with you? I shook my head. How did you know I was there? Leo said happily, You'll never guess. Sophie told me, dude, the goddess Sophie actually talked to me. In the elevator, Leo went on and on about his admiration for Sophie. I thought about it and decided to tell him the truth. Leo, actually, Sophie is my wife. Leo waved his hand dismissively. I know. I used to call Sophie my wife, too. I'm serious. We just got our license today. I took out my marriage certificate and showed it to him. I expected Leo to be disappointed or sad, but after a moment of stunned silence, he looked both shocked and thrilled. Oh my God, you finally did something right. He held the certificate and threw his head back, laughing. I was always wondering what kind of person would be worthy of Sophie. Now I know, it's you, Alex. You and Sophie are perfect for each other. I let out a short, huh? Feeling a little embarrassed. I thought you were going to say I don't deserve her. Leo stopped laughing. He looked at me very seriously. You're a great guy, Alex. You've always been a great guy. It's not just Sophie. Even if it were someone better than Sophie, you'd still deserve them. My eyes started to burn. Thanks. I mean it. In high school, my family was struggling, and I often didn't have enough to eat. You were always secretly putting food in my desk. I was surprised. So you knew. I also know you saved up your allowance to lend me money for school materials. I knew it all. As he spoke, his eyes turned red too. Later, when I got a part-time job and earned some money, I wanted to pay you back, but I couldn't find your contact info. I asked a lot of our classmates, but they'd all taken favors from Mark and deleted your number. Leo and I sat on a bench by the road and talked for a long time. Finally, he said, Alex, I'm really happy you came back. Thanks for coming back and letting me find my good friend again. He shook his phone. We'll keep in touch. Now you should go home. Your wife is about to turn into a statue waiting for you. I looked over at Sophie, standing under a streetlight in the distance, and couldn't help but laugh. When I got home, before I could even turn on the lights, Sophie had me pinned against the door. She touched your hand today. The best defense is a good offense. I could play that game too. She dragged me out right in front of you and you didn't stop her. She slowly leaned in, her familiar scent filling the air. I don't care. You have to make it up to me tonight. Just then, my phone rang. It was my mom. Sophie frowned. Don't answer. I answered it. The moment I picked up, she started screaming. You're back in town, and you didn't even come home first? You haven't been back in years, and you go see your classmates before you see me? Am I dead to you? And another thing, you got plastic surgery? Are you still fantasizing about Chloe? I'm telling you, she's about to be your sister-in-law. You dare make a move on her and see what happens. She went on and on, every word an accusation. I held the phone away from my ear. When I couldn't hear her voice anymore, I brought it back. Alex, you get back here right now, immediately! After hanging up, I looked at Sophie. She brushed the hair from my forehead. Go on, I'll go with you. I shook my head. She's furious right now. Maybe next time. She didn't insist, only saying, call me if anything happens. If it gets too overwhelming, we just won't go back in the future. When I arrived at the house, the atmosphere was cheerful and festive. Mark was showing my mom a picture of a little boy on his phone, saying softly, I recently became a godfather to this little guy, Max. Mom, look, isn't he adorable? I'm planning to talk to Chloe about us adopting him together. My mom smiled dotingly. Yes, that's wonderful. She's going to marry you eventually anyway. You two just need to live a happy life together. Just as they were happily chatting, I walked in. Mark saw me and waved enthusiastically. My mom looked over and her brow immediately furrowed. She snapped, You really went and got plastic surgery? Look at you. You could have gotten anything done, but you had to make yourself look just like your brother. Mark interrupted her. Mom, Alex just got back after so long. Why bring up unpleasant things? He came over and draped an arm chummily over my shoulder. "Alex, I have great news. You're going to be an uncle." I gave a faint, and sidestepped his arm to greet my mother. She gave me a cold once-over and said irritably, "Well, you're at least easier on the eyes now." I was about to breathe a sigh of relief when she continued. "Mrs. Wang from downstairs has a daughter who just got divorced. You two should meet up and settle on a wedding date." I couldn't believe it. "Mom, Mrs. Wang's daughter is 5 years older than me and has a kid. You want me to marry her?" She had always looked down on Mrs. Wang's family. Even when I was at my heaviest, she thought Mrs. Wang's daughter wasn't good enough for her son. "Her family owns 2 beauty salons. Business is booming. Once you marry her, your life might not be as good as your brother's, but it won't be far off." Mark chimed in. "Yeah, Alex. You never even took the college entrance exams. At least she's a proper college graduate." When my dad took me away, there was less than a month until the exams. My dad ran himself ragged trying to sort out my school registration and transcripts. He faced countless obstacles, but thankfully, everything worked out in the end. The price was that I had to repeat my senior year of high school. They only knew I didn't take the exams. They didn't know I eventually got into my dream university. Mark, thinking I was feeling guilty, continued, "Mom's just doing this for your own good. Just listen to her and marry her." I looked at him steadily. "You didn't tell her I got my marriage license." "License? Who got a license?" Kevin's expression didn't change. "Mom, that was just Alex joking around." He then turned to me. "Things you say to save face outside. You don't need to bring them up in front of Mom." I didn't say anything. I took my marriage certificate out of my bag and placed it on the coffee table. "I came back this time to get married." My mom picked up the certificate and opened it. "Sophie Chen? Isn't that the genius from your high school?" "What?" Mark snatched the certificate. After one glance, his face went pale and his breathing became ragged. "Impossible. How could you be married to Sophie? This is impossible. This marriage certificate has to be fake. How could Sophie ever be interested in you? She wasn't even interested in me, so how could she possibly be interested in you?" The certificate crumpled in his hand. I took it back from him and gently smoothed it out. "I'm married. I don't need to be set up on a date." After saying this, I turned and walked toward the door. As I opened it, I came face to face with Chloe, who was about to ring the doorbell. I walked straight past her and left. Behind me, Mark's anxious voice called out, "Chloe, I was thinking we could adopt a child together." After a brief silence, Chloe said, "You go on in. I forgot something in the car." The elevator doors opened. I stepped in, and Chloe followed right behind me. Just as the doors were closing, I saw Mark's resentful face in the hallway. It was just me and Chloe in the elevator. She spoke first. "It's late and hard to get a cab. Let me give you a ride." I politely refused. "No, thank you." "Alex, are you deliberately avoiding me?" "No, you're overthinking it." The elevator doors opened and I strode out. I thought Chloe wouldn't follow, but as I was waiting for a cab by the road, she pulled up in her car in front of me. "Get in. I'll give you a ride." I didn't move. She was persistent. If I didn't get in, she would just drive alongside me. "It's hard to get a cab here. Come on." Seeing the taxis speeding by without stopping, I finally gave in. Once in the car, I gave her the address. She frowned slightly. "This is a residential area. Are you renting?" "I bought a place." Chloe subconsciously glanced at me. "Planning to move back for good? It's not bad here, you know. Having your mom around is always a good thing." I didn't know if Chloe was pretending to be clueless or if she genuinely didn't understand. From the moment I met her, my mom had never once shown me a kind face. Even in front of her, my mom wouldn't pretend to be nice to me. At my lowest points, I even suspected I wasn't her biological son. But unfortunately, I was. Seeing that I wasn't talking, Chloe stopped trying. When we arrived, I got out of the car, and Chloe followed me. I frowned. Is there something else? I just want to see you get home safely. Chloe, you really don't have to do this. Besides, I'm married. Chloe was unfazed. I know you're just using marriage as an excuse. I sighed. Why did no one believe I was married? Knowing that further explanation would be futile, I decided to let her be. I got into the elevator and went up to my floor. Chloe followed, keeping a small distance. As I was taking out my keys, she suddenly called out, "Alex, the person I actually liked back then was—" The door suddenly swung open from the inside. A tall, slender woman reached out with a long arm, and in the instant she kissed me, Chloe's low growl echoed in the hallway. "Sophie, what are you doing?" But Sophie didn't stop at all, deepening the kiss. I tried to push her away, but she was unmovable. It wasn't until Chloe grabbed my arm, trying to forcibly pull me away, that Sophie finally stopped. Her eyes narrowed as she looked past me. But her words were for me. "Why did you bring her back with you?" I looked at Chloe. "Let me introduce you. This is my wife, Sophie." Chloe's hands at her sides clenched into fists, her lips pressed into a thin line. It was the prelude to her losing her temper. But before she could erupt, I was pulled inside the apartment. Those seemingly slender arms pinned me against the wall. The tall woman braced her hands on either side of me. "I'm angry." I slowly raised my hands in surrender. She laughed, exasperated. "What are you doing?" "I'm trying to appease you." This time, Sophie genuinely smiled. She sat down on the sofa and pulled me down next to her. "So tell me, what guilty thing did you do to be this willing to sweet-talk me today?" "Today is the day we got our license, wifey. If we waste it, we can't get it back." Her breath hitched, and her voice became low and husky. "Fine. Then you can talk while we kiss." I don't remember a single thing we talked about that night. I do, however, remember the new positions Sophie had apparently learned. Perhaps because I had run into old classmates, I didn't sleep well that night. I dreamed of many things from the past. That extra year of high school was actually very difficult. The cultural differences between the North and South, combined with the academic stress, led to both physical and psychological issues. My dad had just started at a new job and was busy from morning till night. At my worst, I retreated into the internet, writing long, emotional posts on a forum. That's when Sophie appeared. At the time, I didn't know it was her. I just treated her as a stranger online. She started by leaving comments on my posts, her words witty and humorous. At first, I only read her comments and never replied. Gradually, I started picking fights with her in the comments, mostly to vent my frustrations, and my replies were often filled with profanity. She never got angry. The next time, she'd be back with another clever comment. We continued like this until college started. One day, I was jogging on the university track when I suddenly heard someone call out my screen name. I turned around instinctively and saw Sophie walking toward me from a short distance away. It was only then that I realized I had been talking to her for the past year. Sophie Chen was a legend from my high school, beautiful, brilliant, and always at the top of our class. In high school, I was so insecure that I never dared to look at her directly. Even after talking online for so long, I still didn't have the courage to face her in person. So that day, I ran. How did we get together after that? I think it was because she started asking me to go for night runs. In truth, my weight had already started to drop during that repeated year of high school. At 6'1", I was down to 175 pounds. To continue losing weight, I went running every day in college. Sophie and I would meet on the track every day. She would take the initiative to teach me about healthy weight loss, and we would chat about everything under the sun. Gradually, I found myself falling for her. By my sophomore year, I was down to 155 pounds with clear muscle definition. Sophie was a junior and had started her own business, so she could only squeeze in 2 nights a week for running. The day I planned to confess to her, I put on new clothes and got a new haircut. But on my way to meet her, I ran into Mark and Sophie arguing in front of the girls' dormitory. I was standing far away and couldn't hear what they were saying. I only saw Sophie say something cold to him, and then Mark suddenly lost control and started shouting. As I got closer, I could finally hear what he was saying. He was yelling, "I won't give up, Sophie, I will win you over." Sophie replied coolly, "I already have someone I like. From freshman year until now, he's the only one I've ever liked." I don't remember how I got back to my dorm that day. In the days that followed, I stopped going for night runs. If I saw Sophie on campus, I would deliberately avoid her. Until one day she cornered me at the classroom door. "Why are you avoiding me?" I stammered, unable to find an excuse, and was about to flee when she grabbed my arm. "Alex, don't avoid me." Why?" People were coming and going at the classroom door. Sophie looked at me very seriously and said, "I like you, so please don't avoid me." "Alex?" When Sophie woke me up, I was completely dazed. "What's wrong?" She cupped my face, looking as if she'd encountered a monumental problem. "What were you dreaming about? Why are you crying?" I touched my face. Sure enough, it was wet. I clutched the blanket tightly. "I dreamed you left me." Sophie was speechless for a moment. "Why would I ever leave you? Go back to sleep. It's not morning yet. Sleep a little longer." I snuggled into her arms, wrapping my own around her slender waist. But sleep was gone. "Sophie, when did you start liking me?" "A long, long time ago," she murmured. "Let me think. Probably at the freshman welcome party during that performance you watched." I froze. That was a very, very long time ago. Sophie seemed to be recalling something, her eyes shining brightly in the dark. "When I was dancing, I saw that you were the only one in the audience whose eyes were sparkling. It's a shame I never saw you again after that. But maybe that was for the best, so no one else would find out." "Huh?" I said. "Find out what?" But Sophie wouldn't say any more. "Still can't sleep? If you can't sleep, we could do something else." I was shocked into compliance and immediately closed my eyes, not making another sound. I was woken up later by a phone call. The sun was already up, and Sophie was gone. The call was from my mom. I hesitated for a moment but answered. Her loud voice boomed through the phone. "Didn't your brother ask you to go with Chloe to try on wedding dresses? What time is it? Why aren't you there yet?" I checked my phone. Mark had indeed sent me a message. "But I'm not going." Her voice instantly shot up an octave. "What did you say? If you don't go, am I supposed to? You get over there right now." I rolled over. "Not going. This is rebellion. If you don't go today, I'll disown you." She hung up angrily. In the past, she always used this tactic to force me to comply, and it always worked. She probably thought it would work on me this time too. But she was wrong. I lazed in bed for a while before getting up. There was breakfast Sophie had made for me in the microwave. I had just taken a couple of bites when the doorbell rang. I thought it was Sophie coming back, but when I opened the door, I saw Chloe. I instinctively tried to close the door, but Chloe was quick and blocked it with her foot. "I'll just say one thing and leave. I won't bother you for long." I was skeptical. "What is it?" Her face was grim. "Sophie's relationship with your brother isn't innocent." She then took out several photos. They were pictures of Sophie and Mark from their school days, talking in front of a dormitory building. The angle was chosen well, making them look very close. I handed the photos back to her. "These pictures don't prove anything." I moved to close the door, but Chloe stopped me again. Alex, you trust her that much? I sighed. Do you know why I don't believe you? Because I was there the day they were talking, right across the way in front of the boys' dorm. Do you think I should believe you, or should I believe my own eyes? How could that be? Why were you there too? As she stared at me in confusion, I said, because that's where I went to college. Sophie and I went to the same university. Chloe looked as if she had been struck by lightning, unable to say a word for a long time. After a while, she found her voice again, as if talking to herself. So, that's how it was. I wondered why I never ran into you at school. Her voice trailed off, but just as it was becoming inaudible, she suddenly raised her voice. You lied to me! You once said you'd go to the same university as me, but in the end, you went to the same one as Sophie. No, wait. Wasn't Sophie supposed to go to Harvard or MIT? Why would she apply to a state law program? Impossible, absolutely impossible. I frowned. What are you talking about? She seemed to think of something, dropped the photos, and ran. In her haste, another photo fell from her pocket. I picked it up and froze. It was a picture of me backstage after the freshman welcome party in high school. In the photo, although I was heavy, my smile was bright and my gaze was determined. But how did Chloe get this picture of me? That day, Sophie didn't come back by the afternoon. My calls went unanswered, and my messages disappeared into a void. As night fell, I got a call from Mark. His voice was frantic. Alex, get to the hospital, quick! Sophie and Chloe got into a fight. On the way there, I couldn't figure out why Sophie and Chloe would be fighting. Even if it was a small scuffle, it couldn't be serious enough to land them in the hospital. However, when I saw Sophie with her arm wrapped in a thick bandage, my anger flared. Did Chloe do this? Sophie, looking like the world's biggest victim, said, It was her. Sue her! Just as the words left my mouth, Chloe walked in. She looked disheveled, but she only had a few scrapes on the back of her hand. As soon as she entered, she glared at Sophie. What nonsense are you spouting now? It's just a scratch, and you're wrapping yourself up like a mummy. Sophie replied weakly, I'm not. Honey, you have to believe me. She started it. Hearing her say she was in pain, I immediately asked nervously, Where does it hurt? I'll go get a doctor. No need for a doctor. Just blow on it for me. I took her hand and gently blew on it. Behind me, Chloe roared, Alex, don't let her fool you. She's a conniving little actress. My injuries are worse than hers. Sophie retorted, You're lying. You just have that little scratch on your hand. Honey, look at my arm. It's all bruised. Sophie. Chloe practically spat out the name. I turned back to her. What more do you want? If you don't leave, I'm calling the police. Chloe gritted her teeth, looking like she wanted to say more, but in the end, she just stormed out, slamming the door. While Sophie was hospitalized, my mom and Mark called me several times, but I didn't answer. On the day she was discharged, I was downstairs handling the paperwork when I saw Chloe and Mark arguing by the flower beds. At the end of their argument, Chloe tried to leave. Mark went to grab her, but was thrown off with such force that he fell to the ground. I was in a hurry to finish the paperwork, so I didn't pay them any more attention. I found out later that when Mark fell, his briefcase, which contained important documents, burst open, and a child's birth certificate fell out. I don't know what possessed Chloe, but she picked up the certificate. The result was a shock. The child Mark planned to adopt wasn't an orphan at all, but his biological son with his mistress. He had always known that Chloe couldn't have children due to a medical condition, so he planned to use the child to trap her. Chloe used this to break off the engagement with Mark. By the time Leo told me all this, I was already back at my dad's place. When he heard that my mom had gone with Mark to raise hell at Chloe's family home, he let out a long sigh. Your mom has been a domineering person her whole life. I'm afraid this whole mess won't end well." My dad knew my mom all too well. To ensure Mark married Chloe, she leaked the story to the media, using public opinion to pressure Chloe's family. In the end, Chloe's family couldn't withstand the pressure and agreed to the marriage. At that time, I was busy preparing for my wedding with Sophie. It was early spring, but a freak snowstorm hit. Sophie had left early in the morning. As I was holding a cup of hot water and watching the snow fall outside, I saw Chloe. I don't know how long she had been standing there, but her hair was covered in snowflakes. My dad came to my side and said, "Go on, clear things up with her so there's no misunderstanding with Sophie." I put on a down jacket and went downstairs. As I got closer, I saw a pile of cigarette butts scattered at her feet. She was holding a newly lit cigarette between her fingers. Seeing me, she frantically threw the cigarette down and explained, "I don't smoke often. Go home," I said, looking at her hands, which were red from the cold. "This place doesn't suit you." She hid her hands behind her back. "I'm fine. If you can handle it, I can handle it too. I'm getting married. The wedding is early next month." She forced a smile that was sadder than crying. "Congratulations." I turned to leave, but she grabbed my wrist. "Alex, and I'm just saying if back in freshman year I had admitted that the love letter was for you, would we be living happily together by now?" Her words sent me into a daze. In my freshman year of high school, I received a love letter. There was no name on it, but from the handwriting, I knew it was for me. Later, the letter was found and read aloud in front of everyone, and they all mocked the person who wrote it. "Who would like that fat kid? Hey, doesn't this handwriting look a bit like Chloe's? No way, Chloe likes him? Don't be ridiculous, there's nothing wrong with her taste. Maybe it was for Mark? He's pretty handsome too." I stood there, humiliated, surrounded by the crowd, trying to get help from Chloe, who was on the edge of the circle. However, Chloe only hesitated for a moment before announcing loudly, "I wrote it for Mark. I just asked Alex to pass it along for me." On that day, I felt like I was stranded on a deserted island, but a strong, firm hand grabbed mine, pulled me out of the crowd, and led me away from that toxic place. Chloe's voice pulled me back to the present. "If, on that day, it was me who led you away instead of Sophie, would everything be different?" "No," I said. "Even if you had been the one to lead me away, we wouldn't have lasted, because in your heart, something was always more important than love. Your image, your so-called pride." When Chloe looked up, her eyes were red-rimmed. "But you still agreed to be with me in the end, didn't you?" "I don't deny it. I was young then and couldn't make a completely rational decision. I only knew I had a crush on Chloe, and I thought that was love. It wasn't until I met Sophie that I realized love was so much more. But to Chloe's ears, my words meant something else entirely." She took an excited step forward. "So you still like me, right?" I shook my head firmly. I just don't want to negate my past self. No matter how imperfect I was back then, that was still a part of me. I don't deny that I liked you when I was young. But now, I love Sophie. Go home. You'll never get used to the weather here." That night, another heavy snow fell. When I woke up in the morning, the world outside was a blanket of white. The parking spot where her car had been was empty. My dad said the car drove away just as dawn was breaking. For my wedding with Sophie, I asked Leo to be my best man. The wedding was held in Clearwater. I invited a few close friends, and all of Sophie's college roommates came. After a few rounds of drinks, a cheerful girl threw her arm around Sophie's shoulder and wouldn't let go. I used to wonder why Soph was suddenly so possessed, running at the track every single day. Now that I see her husband, I get it. She wasn't just possessed, she was head over heels. Everyone roared with laughter. Another person said, There's so much you don't know. I also know that she had a black-covered notebook on her desk. She suddenly stopped talking. Someone else urged her, "Don't leave us hanging. What was in the black-covered notebook?" The girl took a sip of her drink. It was her husband's diary. "Hey, how did you know it was a diary?" "Because I read it, of course. I was wondering why Soph didn't go to Harvard or MIT and came to our school instead. Turns out she was chasing her man." I had a black-covered diary where I wrote all my secrets. Not long after I wrote down my dream university, the diary disappeared. I never thought it would end up with Sophie. After the reception, Sophie and I went home. She had a bit too much to drink, but she was a happy drunk. I went to draw her a bath, and she sat obediently on the sofa, calling my name every few seconds. I held her face in my hands, exasperated. "How did you get this drunk?" "Honey, I'm so happy." "Oh? And why are you so happy?" "I liked you from the first moment I saw you. I've liked you for a very, very long time. You said you didn't want a relationship and wanted to focus on studying, and I was so sad for so long." I raised an eyebrow. "That happened?" I had no memory of it. "Yes, but you're a little liar. You ended up dating Chloe." "It was only for a month. A month is still not okay. You have to make it up to me." I played along. "And how would you like me to do that?" Without a second thought, she said, "You can wash my back." "Fine." I suspect Sophie was faking being drunk. Halfway through the bath, she was the one washing me. It took a full 3 hours. Heh, you really can't spoil a woman.